Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we're shaping the future of floriculture, one conversation at a time. We talk with the growers, leaders, and innovators shaping tomorrow's greenhouse industry today. From market trends, next generation plants, and innovative production, to the challenges and breakthroughs redefining what it means to grow. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. Let's dig into what's next together. The floriculture industry never stops innovating, and that includes growers as well as industry suppliers. This episode is the first part of our Leaders in Floriculture podcast series, where we talk to experts in plant breeding, plant health, and greenhouse technology about the important roles they play in innovation, sustainability, and helping to shape the future of floriculture. My first conversation is with Greg Van Geest, Vice President of Sales and Product Development at Westbrook Greenhouse Systems. Like many other companies in the floriculture industry, Westbrook is a family-owned business that is going through a transition. I talked with Greg about why sustainability is a key focus of Westbrook's future outlook, its next wave of product development, and more.
Westbrook has been around for a little over 50 years and has a strong team of knowledgeable and a dedicated team of sales reps and designers. We always are listening to what growers are looking for, what they need in the market and out of their greenhouse structures. We also offer heating systems and curtain systems. We get into third-party install. Really, a lot of growers have been looking for more of the greenhouse package to come from a single supplier.
Okay.
I've seen that in Canada particularly. We're seeing that happen a little bit more in the US as well. So developing more of that turnkey package into what we offer has been part of what we're bringing to the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. One nice thing about Westbrook is that like a lot of the growing companies that are part of this industry, you're also a family-owned company. So how does that play into the future direction of the company and how you work with other folks in the industry?
It's a family-owned business since it's been around, and we're just going through succession planning.
Okay.
A few years into it already, and changing generations. So still a couple of the prior generation are involved,
Okay.
and we got 4 of the new generation coming in, and that's awesome to see because it gives new lifeblood basically into the company where the time horizon stretches another 20 to 30 years. So you look at investment differently, you look at how you're going to grow and manage the business differently. And that's an excellent thing to have. I think a lot of growers and a lot of suppliers in this industry are facing that right now.
Okay.
You see some private equity coming in, you see some ownership changes happening. Some succession planning is happening generationally, which is good to see. And others are, either selling or changing ownership, which has an impact on the industry. But I'm really glad that Westbrook is remaining a family-run business. The way that operates in the culture has been very good. It's one of the things I love most about the industry is the family nature of it.
Sure.
And seeing, a father to son or to daughter transition is really exciting.
Okay. As you guys track, trends in the market, anything from, the number of operations that are in the industry, as you see, areas of consolidation here and there, and then as growers are investing in the types of structures that they have, how do you track that, and then how do you respond to that as a company?
You're talking kind of consolidation of growers.
Right. Yep.
It's obviously a growing industry. Every year you see more acres being built and managed. So the industry does grow. What we also see, if you look at data from Greenhouse Canada or USDA data from the States, that the actual number of growers decreases every year, which just consolidates more and more the decision makers basically. I think at one point there might have been 25,000 growers is a number that I have in my mind in North America,
Mhm.
and that's shrinking year over year. And so you've got the small guys typically going away and the big guys getting bigger.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just changes how decisions are made. Some things get a little more corporate the bigger the company gets. So
Mhm.
it's less relational. It's less, oh, I know this guy. I trust this guy. It's more of a corporate decision being made where you might not ever get to really see or hear the person's opinion on what they want.
Sure.
You get an RFQ and you fill it out, you send the email in, and if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. There's not really much more than that in some cases. It also makes the each sale then that we could get becomes more valuable, right? Because
Yeah.
the builds tend to be bigger and bigger.
Sure.
So it makes each deal a little bit more important to pay attention to and to get, right?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask briefly about sustainability and how sustainability has become an important part of your of your company culture and how you look at it moving forward as a company.
Yeah, sustainability has been a big part of the industry. There's been a lot of moves towards that the last, I'd say, 20 years even. Um, Energy efficiency is obviously a big part of it. So installing a shade curtain can help with energy savings. We're seeing boilers of all different kinds. It used to be, back in the day, an oil boiler, and then you see some natural gas boilers coming in. We also do biomass, wood chip boilers, condensing boilers have come into it. So there's all kinds of ways to be more energy efficient. And with the proper heating design, you can really see the savings in energy and electrical needs. Um, from our standpoint here at a shop, I mean, we operate a fabrication shop doing
Sure.
steel work,
Okay.
and so we're always looking at how can we get the smallest amount of scrap. So being efficient with that and looking at sustainability on that side of it. Um, if we can uh, utilize the material as efficiently as possible, and that comes to the mill. If we know we need it to be a 16-foot post, can we order them exactly 16 feet long
Mhm.
instead of a standard 21 or 24 foot and cutting it down?
Okay.
So always looking at how do you utilize the material effectively. And then on the grower side, of course, right? Like I said, the energy efficiency
Yeah.
and and yeah, trying to help them on their end.
Okay. And then finally, what does the next wave of product of innovation look like at Westbrook, particularly when it comes to product development as you move forward?
Yeah. Um, we developed some products back in the 90s and early 2000s, and we've kind of ridden that wave of development for the last 20 years, let's say.
Okay.
We've always been developing and innovating. We just haven't necessarily marketed that. So a couple years ago, we had a sales rep that joined us in the Midwest, and he noticed a lot of interest in the A-frame product.
Okay.
And we've done them before, but no one knows about it. It's kind of the best kept secret, right? If you know to ask, okay, we'll do it for you. But no one calls us out of the blue and says, "Hey, can I get one of these? I see it in your brochure or I see it on your website." It's inside crowd knows, and that's it.
Yeah.
So we've put a little bit of effort the last couple years, really the last year, into um, kind of standardizing an A-frame product
Okay.
and making it easier to quote, easier for us to do the drawings, make that a more readily available product. So we're getting ready to launch that in January. We're recording now in December, but in when this goes live, maybe January's in the past already. Um, and so we will have that being launched in January,
Okay.
where we will be able to provide a quote more quickly, and it should be at a more competitive price point because it's a standardized product.
Okay.
Um, and so it's a great product for either a garden center looking for a large open atrium style um, structure,
Mhm.
or it works well for production, right? We can put a truss across a nice flat level truss that you can use for hang baskets or running an irrigation boom off of. And you still get that nice large cushion of air to protect your environment as you're venting through different seasons. Um, so it's exciting. We've kind of 20 years of not launching a product, and now we're getting um, back into the swing of product development and launching new products, which I find very exciting.
We move on to plant nutrition and my conversation with Mason Day, Vice President of Business Development at Jack's Fertilizers. We talk about what the next phase of innovation looks like at Jack's Fertilizers and how the company responds to the needs of growers. As we look to the next wave of innovation in this industry, I want to talk to you, Mason, at Jack's Fertilizers about, what does that next phase of innovation look like at your company? What are you guys kind of doing to take the company forward and take the industry forward at the same time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Brian. And I think that being a fertilizer manufacturer, we do take some of our cues from the rest of the industry as a whole,
Yeah,
meaning that with new plants and like we've seen with Firefly, right, in the last few years, new plants have new nutrient requirements, and so we're always trying to just stay as close to up to date with the industry as we can. And so
sure.
our innovation from a fertilizer standpoint, really, we want to make sure that when there is a plant nutrient need, that we are adapting and have the materials and the raw materials in house to create the perfect blend, if you will. And I would say that not every blend is perfect at the onset, so we're always reimagining, our nutrition plans and programs to say how do we help growers grow plants better, and that includes things like I said, nutrient profiles, targets, etc., but also kind of product forms. And one of the things that we launched this year from a consumer line was like a fertilizer plus microbe combination that's meant to
Okay.
be mixed at the soil level. And then this year we're rolling that out in a 25-pound bag for growers to give them an opportunity, instead of adding a scoop of beneficial microbes and a scoop of fertilizer when they're mixing their media. Now they can do it all in one bag. So we're not only looking at what those nutrients need to be, but also kind of what are some outside of the box ideas that we can incorporate from a nutrient delivery standpoint as well.
Okay. Well, I like the approach you guys are taking. It sounds like it's a mix of, here's our goals we have internally, here's what we want to accomplish, but then we're also listening to the needs of our grower customers who are telling us this is where they want to be with their fertilizer and plant nutrition needs in the future. And here's how we're going to then respond to those needs.
Absolutely. That's where it's really nice to have our JR Peters laboratory on site, because we see all kinds of challenges from growers across the country. Growing things that we all know and love: petunias, geraniums, poinsettias. There's those crops. No matter how you're growing them, there always seems to be something that you could be doing better.
Yeah.
But then also people that are growing weird, strange, one of a kind things that they're like, hey, I'm using this and it's working okay, but it would be a lot better if it did X, Y, and Z. And that's where, we take a look at things when they come in, and we're able to not only help them in, if they have a big problem, right, with say that, they need to figure out a way to add a lot more iron or a lot more calcium into what they're doing, but also to say, okay, instead of looking at it as a one-off, situation, how do we take a look and say, does this affect broader, parts of the industry, or
Right.
will it affect that? And then, we can kind of make changes from there as well.
Okay. Well, I think that's a nice point that leads into I was going to ask about the vision for the future at a company like Jack's Fertilizers. What sounds like ties into it nicely because, you've got, you might think of, plant nutrition, okay, it's the same thing every year and kind of growers know what they know, but you've also got new plant categories emerging, especially over the past few years with coming out of the pandemic. You've got, different grower needs based on, how their greenhouse is changing and what their consumers are asking about. How does that all tie into the vision for the future of Jack's Fertilizers?
Yeah. So the vision of the future of Jack's Fertilizers, one, it's exciting. I would say that we've had a lot of changes in the last year and a half. Last January of 2024, Carrie and her husband John purchased the company from her parents. So we're now into the third generation,
Okay.
and Carrie and John have brought a renewed excitement. Not that things weren't exciting, but obviously they are looking towards the future and saying, yeah, kind of as you described, Brian, fertilizer from the outset, some people look at it and it's like, yeah, I buy my same bags of fertilizer every year and do this. But for us, this change in ownership has allowed us to think, what more could we do?
Mm,
How do we grow? How do we do what we're doing in different places for different, not only crops, but also growing structures. So like,
yeah.
I would say, 8-ish years ago, they launched Jack's Nutrients, which was designed for CEA and cannabis.
Okay.
And so, we're always looking at what's the next thing that people might be doing. We see a lot of interest in high tunnels and people feeding on drip in those high tunnels. And in field soil, your nutrient requirements are much different. So how do we help those folks out as well? And so that's where our eye for the future is truly on what are growers going to need, and not necessarily even what do they need right now. We want to
Yeah.
be thinking a little bit past that.
Okay. Well, I like the multi-generational aspect of this too, because I tend to think about when it comes to something like succession planning, or you hear about his businesses in this industry, third and fourth generation. I tend to think it more from like the grower side, but to your point, it's everybody involved in the industry. You've got a company like this that if they're bringing in the next generation, that sparks new ideas, new ways of looking at things, and using the tools that you might have now that your predecessors didn't have, while also knowing that a few years down the road what is going to something to be the emerging tools that we don't even know about yet. So that's a really refreshing approach to take, I think.
Yeah, no, and it's a lot of fun at the same time because, I started with J.R. Peters 6 years ago now, and when I came in, I was like, I'm a plant guy, and I was like, okay, look, this is a change of kind of scenery for me, and at the same time, I think that people underestimate how exciting um, it is what happens in the root zone for plants, and
Yeah.
how nutrients work and how things can get locked out, and so there's a lot of excitement every day in the fertilizer world that I think some people often overlook.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about that excitement. So just overall then, what excites you the most about the future of this industry that you're in?
Yeah, I think as I mentioned, I'm a plant guy, so I got to start there.
Yeah.
Um, that just the things that we've seen in the last few years when it comes to plant development and ingenuity, the sky is the limit now, and I see all sorts of different startup companies, and whether they make it or not, focusing on breeding interesting new varieties or genuses that may not have been commercialized in the past, or even I've seen some startups focusing on like listening to plants and listening in their bioelectrical kind of signals. I think
Yeah.
that if that's exciting to me, and it's exciting to see this industry. I think if you would have said asked this question 15 years ago, there the industry maybe was lagging a little bit behind technologically, and I think that
Mhm.
that is absolutely not the case at this point in time. I think we are caught up, and I think in a lot of ways we used to talk about plant blindness, where people were they would come buy their plants every spring and then they'd forget about us for a year. It's not really the case. Plants are cool, plants are hip, and it's definitely an exciting time. I think I've said exciting, 100 times in this this conversation so far, but I used to have friends that outside of the industry that'd be like, "Oh, this is Mason. He works in plants," and that was kind of like they're like, "Yeah, this guy." And now it's not. That's not the case. All my friends that are outside of the industry are constantly like, "What's happening? What is it? What's this? Have you heard this? Have you seen this?" And so that really does give good signs for the industry, and it's something that we've always known how vital we are, but now other people are seeing it, and so what a time to be in horticulture and floriculture.
My next conversation is with Eric Smith, National Sales Manager of the Horticulture Division at BioSafe Systems. Eric outlines how sustainability has long been and will continue to be part of the company culture at BioSafe, why being innovative is critical to long-term growth, and more. Let's start by talking about sustainability and really how and why sustainability has become an important part of the company culture at BioSafe Systems.
That's a great question. That is, frankly, the reason, sustainability, you hear a lot about that. It's at times a buzzword, at times it's in marketing pieces and in research and different things like that. Lot of talk about sustainability for good reasons, right? People are wanting to make those improvements for one reason or another, economics, environment, or what have you. So that, we're excited about that.
Yeah.
Uh, that the framework of sustainability and that idea really is the basis of BioSafe. That's how and why we were founded 28 years ago now. Been a long time. The founder of the company, Rob LaRose, who unfortunately left us a couple years ago,
Yeah.
untimely passing, but he worked in environmental cleanup.
Okay.
And he saw a need for, having to scrape out all these Superfund sites, and a lot of them were farms and nurseries and greenhouses. And he
Mhm.
saw a need for a fungicide or bactericide or pesticide in general, that didn't cause these long-term issues that he was encountering with regularity in a previous role as, doing environmental cleanup on these
Yeah.
sites. And so an opportunity came his way with some chemistry, and that, being an entrepreneur as he was in a very big way, he thought, well, heck, here's my answer. I'm cleaning up all this stuff out of the ground, and I have this non-residual stuff that turns into water and air literally and kills bacteria and fungi. I'm onto something here. And so that was the genesis of what is now known as Xeritol. Xeritol 2.0 in BioSafe systems writ large is the need for a much more sustainable approach to horticulture. And
Yeah.
where, I'm going on 10 years with the company myself, and so it's been a heck of a ride for BioSafe as a family, as a company, and myself.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and obviously tied into sustainability, kind of alluded to there a second ago, is the need for innovation. So let's talk about innovation and both how that again is an important part of the culture there, and then also what you see as the next wave of innovation. How does that look about, say, particularly as your focus is on addressing the needs of your grower customers?
Absolutely, and innovation is a big part of what we do. We try to innovate at every possible opportunity. As a solutions provider, in the chemical field, as a chemical manufacturer that BioSafe is, we're always looking for ways to innovate in existing product or an existing application or a program, even to address the current or potential future needs of those growers. So innovation is something, it's kind of the adapt or die mentality, is that if you have to come out with something new, you want to try to always better yourself as a manager, as a team member, as a company, to produce something that is better than what you had before to address
Sure.
needs. And so that's something we take very seriously. We're always looking at, new products or ways to expand current products applications via labeling or what have you. That plays a big role in what we do. As Rob used to say, we like to take a novel approach.
Mm.
And so even innovating an existing product with potentially a different formulation type, maybe it was a WP, and we're going to create an aqueous version of that, or vice versa, however that may look. We've done that in the past. And so that's something that, is certainly at the forefront with us, is how do we innovate? How do we better our product portfolio to provide more and better solutions for our grower partners, whether it's, ornamentals or veggies or what have you, whatever the subsegment might be,
Yeah.
greenhouse, whatever crops are being grown, right? We're
Right.
trying to address those needs, via innovation.
Sure, and that helps too on the grower side, I'm sure, as they're trying to keep up with, what does innovation look like for us as a grower, and how do we respond to, new opportunities, new challenges, and how does our network of suppliers kind of play into that? It seems like a nice approach you guys are taking.
Exactly. Things change fast, as we've seen, over the
Yep.
past 5 years, and several times before that. But yeah, staying on the forefront of that, having to innovate, forcing yourself to innovate. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes there's the great unknown, but you have to take those chances and put your best foot forward with various types of innovation.
Sure, absolutely. And then as you look ahead into the future, what excites you the most about the future of this segment of floriculture that you're involved in?
As a chemical manufacturer, we're heavily involved in integrated pest management, IPM, and water treatment and sanitation, facility sanitation, those things. So what excites me a lot and probably most is that we're able to meet a lot of the challenges that, through innovation that the growers are facing, whether it be labor, water quality, imported or invasive pests and disease issues. We're able to innovate and provide those solutions for our grower partners, whether it's something like our new product BioFighter, which is very innovative as the first systemic endophyte Bavaria bassiana. There's a lot of Bavarias, but none quite like this in the horticulture and floriculture world. So we're very excited about that as part of our innovation push going into the future. And that's one of many that it's already out and available. We have others in the pipeline that we're looking at. So
Sure.
those types of things where we're able to solve those issues, we're really it's starting to speed up. The ball is rolling, the momentum, the flywheel is turning. If you read Good to Great, but
Hmm.
it's exciting in that we're able to address those challenges. Labor being a very big one.
Finally, I caught up with Brian Schulker, Business Development Manager of Growing Media Components at Jiffy, where he shared his insights on how Jiffy's vision as a company continues to evolve and why sustainability is helping to guide its future direction. let's talk first about vision. I know, Jiffy is one of those companies that's always looking to the future. So, what does your vision and what is Jiffy's vision for the future of this industry? How is that continuing to evolve?
I like this question because I think that it's very impactful for every company in our industry at the moment, because you do have to kind of put yourself in this forward thinking mindset, or else you won't have the customers you're looking for. At Jiffy, the benefit for us is that I think as a company, we're a very forward thinking and evolving company. I don't believe as a company that was always our mantra, but
Mhm.
every company kind of has I would say peaks and valleys as you kind of go through your term. In the 50s, we created the Jiffy Pods. That was the craziest thing I think that we did back then. That was before the Green Revolution.
Yeah.
So we start back then, and if you look back, and I've actually found some really old magazine articles discussing Jiffy back in the 50s and 60s, which kind of gave me some really interesting perspective on what we were as a company back then.
Yeah.
And it was doing stuff with Jiffy or in a Jiffy, and that was kind of where it came from.
Okay.
Looking back, looking to the future now, I think that we can kind of continue our push for higher efficiency operations. That's both on the substrate side and the final product side.
Sure.
Obviously, in any case, we're trying to increase plant performance, decrease time to harvest, increase flower count, all these different things in terms of what our substrates can potentially do for our customers.
Okay.
But we're really focusing solely on these growing media components and innovative technologies that support this reliable propagation.
Okay.
Top of that with the automation and then resource optimization. So local for local resources, reducing transit time, increasing our sustainability on top of all that.
Sure. And I like the fact that you said that you were looking back at what you guys have done in the past. Because, I mean, really, when you think about it, you learn about how to plan for the future by looking at how you evolved in the past, and the lessons you learned along the way can really guide your future direction.
Yeah, and that was the coolest part. I mean, I'm looking at these magazines that I had. I mean, luckily, a good friend of mine has we'll call him a hoarder, but I won't put his name out there. But he has all these different articles that he was looking through when he would send me all these snippets, and then it finally was just like, hey, please give me the book. I kind of want to read this whole thing now because I'm seeing all this stuff not only from my company, which is really cool to see, but also just other innovations that were happening back in the 50s and 60s that
Yeah.
we're kind of bringing back to the table again today as new ideas and new products. But while we're using this as leverage for the future, we're also learning from the past.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. Let's talk about sustainability for a second and how that has become an important part of the company culture at Jiffy and how it's also driving your future direction.
Yeah, and I think that sustainability to me is to me as a substrate researcher, and that has been kind of my upbringing. It's been everything that I've tried to do. I think as a company, it's also the image that we're trying to present, because as a global company, we kind of have to be. You have resources spread across the globe. So we have peat bogs in Canada, we have peat bogs in Estonia, we have cocoa production in Sri Lanka. All of those are kind of very widespread.
Yeah.
With customers kind of globally spread with essentially located production facilities. So how can we take all these different aspects and kind of create a more sustainable future? And I think that's what we've been doing our best to do for the past 10 years now. Whether that's responsibly sourcing these new materials, finding new raw materials closer to production sites,
Mm.
or improving our substrate efficiency by itself to find ways that our final product can reduce the impact on a grower and what they need to do in their operation.
Yeah. Well, and I know in a particular segment of the market that you're involved in, sustainability seems to be one of the key drivers for the entire, media market how does it dictate the future? So that's great that you guys are staying on top of that. I mean, that's a critical topic in this area, I think.
Yeah, and that kind of goes right back into the two new products that we're launching. And again, I'm not trying to be an infomercial here, and I will keep that as short as possible. But we do have our Jiffy Gel product and our new Jiffy Cane Pith, which is a
Yeah.
up and a gas product, both of which have a sustainable focus. And that was the goal of them from the beginning. Whether it's resource use or on-site manufacturing or a waste product that can be turned into a valorized material for us to use in professional substrates. Both of which have a similar mission, but a different way of getting there.
Okay. Okay. How do those tie into what the next wave of innovation looks like at Jiffy as you guys look forward?
I mean, it kind of shows where our future is starting from. I think we will always have our normal materials, our materials of peat, our core, our perlite, our wood fibers. But it also shows that as a company, we're really trying to understand what the outer rims of research can do for us to bring our industry into a different light, and
Yeah.
to really spearhead the idea of who of kind of getting these new materials into customers' hands, getting customers to understand that this isn't scary.
Right.
But you are on the cusp of these type of innovation and this future talk for substrates.
Okay.
Gel specifically, for anyone who it's putting it into an education perspective first, a management perspective second, and a performance perspective third, because the first question is going to be, okay, well, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah. You have to start there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite like, okay, well, cool, we're using wood fiber in our peat. That's great. So I don't have to do too much. But when you're talking about something like gel, it's more of a, well, okay, so this is really cool. It works. I know it works, but how do I get from it being in my operation to it being successful in my operation? And I think
Yeah.
that's been a really cool piece because people are just excited for something different.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. Just kind of close this out. So when you look towards the future of this particular segment of the market that you're in, what excites you the most about the future of this industry? What are you most looking forward to?
That's a really good question because for me, it's the excitement surrounding what's next. I think, and that sounds like a really broad statement, and I understand that. But the purpose behind that is by saying our industry as a whole is willing to make adjustments for whether it's sustainability, new product innovations, resource reduction, or local for local resourcing or sourcing of materials. And so I think we're seeing a pretty massive shift recently in the acceptance of these types of mindsets, which is really kind of changing how we look at it as a company for what our customers are interested in. We're not just a supplier of substrates for customers who want the same mix for the last 25 years. We have people who are actually asking to trial the new product because they're interested and excited. And I think that kind of gives not only us as a company, but everybody else the opportunity to bring these new cool products to market, which means that over the next decade, we're going to keep seeing these really interesting innovations come out.
Thank you for joining us. You can learn more about this and other topics at greenhousegrower.com, and you can also follow Greenhouse Grower on LinkedIn. Please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and please leave us a rating or review as it helps other listeners find the show. The Greenhouse Grower to Grower podcast is produced by the team at Meister Media Worldwide. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower.